All right, full guide to reclaiming your attention span from the modern world. Let's go. Okay, so first is understanding attention span. So, attention span is basically your ability to maintain focus on a particular task. We're hearing a lot about attention span nowadays and how it's really important, and how a lot of people are struggling with their attention span, but a lot of people don't understand what exactly it is. So, basically, in really simple terms, it's your ability to focus. Okay? Um, the word span here basically it refers to a duration, so how long on average you're able to maintain focus on that one task. But in general, it's your ability to focus. Now, why is attention span important? Well, it's important for all mental work, and it's a very important trait, especially in today's modern economy, because all mental work requires you to stay focused on a particular task, right? Whether you're, scripting a YouTube video like the one I'm recording right now, or you're writing a novel, or you're coding, maybe running through spreadsheets, some sort of finance work. Any sort of mental work that you're doing is requiring you to have good levels of focus to properly engage in the work you're doing to be maximally productive. And it's a very important trait, especially in today's economy, because after the Industrial Revolution, we no longer mostly labor with our body, right? Like in the Industrial Revolution, we all went to the factory, we all just shut our brains off and worked for 12 hours a day, and that was it, right? We didn't need this sort of level of focus in our lives because it wasn't necessary to have mental focus. What was necessary was to be able to be a good laborer, right? But now in the modern world, we run on your mental power, right? Your income, your ability to succeed in your career or business or anything like that really just comes down to how good are you mentally, right? And so your attention span is a huge advantage. And this is especially important because the average attention span is incredibly low nowadays. So if you can have an excellent attention span, you are ahead of so much of the population. The average attention span right now is about 8 seconds. And the average attention span of a goldfish, by the way, is 9 seconds. Goldfish are always known for like being forgetful and like never really focused. We literally have a lower attention span than goldfish. The modern human has a lower attention span than a goldfish. Your ability to focus is significantly hindered, and I'll talk about why that is, but understand that if you continue to operate at this suboptimal level, you will never achieve the success that you want in your mental work, so your career, business, etc., because you're never going to be able to actually focus properly. So why is attention span so low nowadays? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all is time-space compression. This is sort of a fancy sounding word, but it basically means that the bridge between space and time has been shortened. So earlier, let's say it's the 1400s, right? To get to, let's say you're Columbus and you're sailing from Spain to the Americas, right? You have to travel months in a boat to get there. Whereas now, it just takes like 9, 10 hours on a flight and you're there. You see what I mean? Time space compression. Earlier, you used to have to wait maybe 2 days for, a letter to be delivered to a friend or something. And then another like 2, 3 days for a response. Now, you can send emails and text messages within seconds, right? So time space compression is not necessarily a bad thing, right? That's what our modern economy runs on, is this modern technology. However, it is somewhat limiting our attention span because we're so used to receiving things almost instantly, right? Whereas earlier you had to go to a library and study up materials, read through a bunch of books. First of all, find the book in the library, open it up, find the chapter, read through the entire thing to find information. Now you have to go onto a Google site, search it up, boom, done. And earlier we had the patience. We had the patience to go to the library. We had the patience to sit there, find the book, go through the book, and find the information. Now we would not have that patience. In fact, now we don't even have the patience to where if our Google is taking more than 10 seconds to load, we just shut it off. We just go on TikTok instead, right? So our modern technology is somewhat actually lowering our attention span and our overall mental health because we are less patient than we were before, and we're more expecting of like instant results, instant this, instant that, instead of having that same patience that we used to, right? Like if you think about, right, caveman days, right, we would spend all day focused on one thing, right? We're out there, we're hunting, and we're only hunting. You're not like, taking a break to like scroll and then, oh, checking my notifications and then, oh, I'm going to watch TV and then, oh, I'm going to do a little bit of studying and, oh, no, I'm bored, so let me watch TikTok again. You are sitting there for like 6 to 8 hours a day waiting for prey, and then you hunt, right? That is the caveman. And our brains are still our caveman brains. This is something I really want you to understand. It takes so long for your brain to evolve. Okay? Modern technology and even like civilization as we know it only started existing a couple, maybe 10,000 years ago. But our evolution has not progressed at the same rate that our technology has. So if technology is going like this, evolution is still like that. It's slowly happening, but it's very, very slow. So technology has outpaced evolution. And as a result, we are not able to keep up with the modern technology. Now we can adapt, and adaptation is actually relatively fast, just like technology. But in terms of evolution, you are still a caveman, right? Your body and brain still function in the same ways that a caveman's would, without adaptation, of course. If you were put in a natural environment like a caveman, you would function almost the exact same. So, understanding that, just realize that you're not supposed to be switching your attention 100 times per day, right? That's not what you're built for. You're built to be focused on maybe 1, 2, 3 things throughout the day. That's max. Like, you're not supposed to be switching your attention every couple minutes, every couple seconds even. So understand that this is not natural for us, and that's why it's so hard for us to actually focus, because we're not used to being able to switch around our attention like this. We're supposed to be focused on one thing. That's the way our brains are designed, and that is what the modern economy rewards. That's what you want to pursue in your life in terms of your career and your goals. And so therefore we need to focus on increasing our attention span so that we are able to focus for longer and better. The second thing, that's really the main culprit, is short form content. So by short form content, I mean, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, all those kinds of like quick, short videos that you can watch. Those are really, really, really harmful to your attention span, because think about what it's conditioning for you to do, right? Instead of focusing on one thing, you are sitting there watching a video, and within 2 to 3 seconds, you've decided already whether you want to watch it or not. Okay? You can just scroll past it and go right to the next thing. So you're scrolling. And think about this. Every single time you scroll, your attention is being shifted from one video to the next, to the next, to the next, right? Suddenly, you were watching a video about cooking. Now you're watching a video about fitness. Now you're watching a video about your favorite video game. You are switching your attention every few seconds, and your brain is essentially adapting, right? We're talking about adaptation here. It's adapting. So it's thinking, okay, I need the ability to switch attention quickly because that is what my body is signaling to me. Therefore, I'm going to lower my attention span, lower my ability and attachment to watching one thing at a time or doing one thing at a time, and instead I'm going to make it so that I can spread out my focus across multiple areas with a lower attention span, right? This is adaptation. This is not how you're naturally supposed to be. Think about the very first time you watched short form content. You probably watched the entire video, maybe even multiple times before scrolling to the next. And now you look at it for 2 seconds, scroll, right? You can make the split-second decision that earlier you weren't so quick to make, right? You were more open to like seeing the entire video because your attention span wasn't so low. Now, if I force you to sit and watch an entire video that you weren't really interested in, you would hate it. Like, if you are scrolling on shorts and you see, oh, like a boring video, and I make you watch it, you would feel such an urge to scroll past it. You wouldn't be able to tolerate it. The older you would have been able to, but you've been conditioned so that now you can't tolerate it because your attention span is so low. You're going to zone out, you're going to start thinking about other things instead of actually focusing on the video, whereas earlier the previous you would have definitely been able to focus on it, right? So short form content is a big one. And then third is escapism. So escapism is basically the idea that we are trying to escape our reality. And this is especially true with short form content, but also just with other things that ruin your attention span in general, right? Because think about it this way. When you're living life, you are focused. When you're going throughout your normal day, you are focused on the day. So if you're driving to work, you're focused on the drive to work. That's your default state. If you're sitting on the train talking to the person next to you, you're focused on that, right? If you're sitting and working, you're focused on that. Focus is the default state, okay? When we try to escape reality, we are escaping focus. So, some reasons that escapism is especially common is when you don't feel comfortable with your own thoughts. If you can't sit in front of a wall for an hour and feel comfortable with your thoughts, then yes, of course you're going to try to escape your thoughts because you don't like your thoughts. You don't feel comfortable just sitting there with your thoughts alone, so you try to distract yourself. And every time you distract yourself, you are lowering your attention span because you're signaling to your brain, listen, I can't handle this. I can't focus on one thing for multiple minutes on hand, right? I need to constantly be switching my attention. I can't sit here with my own thoughts. I need to be scrolling at this time. You're signaling to your brain to lower your attention span, and your attention span just gets more and more and more damaged because you're constantly trying to escape reality instead of facing reality. You're constantly trying to, scroll or, randomly, think of some weird ideas, right? Your brain constantly thinks of new ideas all the time instead of, focusing on what you're actually doing in the moment. This is escapism. You're trying to escape your reality, and as a result, you are signaling to your brain, I can't focus on reality. So your attention span goes down. That being said, attention span is really important. And so I've just told you a bunch of reasons why attention span is going down. I'm going to be frankly very honest with you. You probably have a really bad attention span. However, there are ways to fix this, and let's go over those now. Okay, so the first one, most important and most obvious one, is to avoid the things that are destroying your attention span in the first place. So, as we talked about, the main culprit is short form content, but also escapism. So, I'll get into more specifics further on the slide, but basically, if you know something's destroying your attention span, don't do it. The biggest one is short form content. So, if you can get rid of short form content from your life, you are essentially 40% of the way there in terms of rebuilding your attention span, maybe even 50%. Because if you've been using short form content for so long, your attention span is so damaged that when you remove this from your life, you're going to see such a major benefit from it. So definitely remove short form content altogether from your life. I don't want to see you scrolling once, right? Don't click on YouTube shorts if you see them in your YouTube feed. Click on long form YouTube videos and watch those. And I'll get into the content consumption strategy as well. But yeah, just have the general mindset to avoid things that are destroying your attention span. I'm not going to go in too much detail on avoid this and this and this and this, because we'll get into general mindset shifts. And I think it's fairly clear to understand what is destroying your attention span, right? Anything that disrupts your focus from your normal life. Scrolling disrupts your focus because you're constantly refocusing on a new thing. Having notifications on your phone is disrupting your focus because you're training your brain, I shouldn't focus on work for a long time because every time I try to focus on work, boom, I get a notification and then I get distracted. Those kinds of general distractions, avoid this. The second one is meditation, and this is probably the most effective exercise. Not even probably. This is the most effective exercise for building your focus. Meditation, okay? So in case you don't know how meditation works, I'm going to go over it really quick. So there's main steps of meditation, and there's 4 of them. The first one is you're focusing on a certain point. So some people like to like focus right behind their forehead or like on the third eye. You can just focus on the breath. That's like the simplest and most basic form of meditation, but really just focus on any point, right? So step 1 is focus. Okay, then you go into step 2. Step 2 is what happens naturally because our attention spans are so bad, right? Maybe if our attention spans weren't so bad, maybe we wouldn't even get to step 2. I don't know. But we do get to step 2, okay? Step 2 is where you lose your attention. You lose your attention on the breath. So you're sitting there, you're meditating, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And then suddenly you lose your attention from the breath. You start thinking about yesterday, what happened yesterday, or what you're going to eat for dinner, or what's going to happen tomorrow. You start getting anxious, stressed. Maybe you start, thinking, oh, I wish I could have done that, whatever, right? You get a thought in your brain, and basically you get distracted from your breath. This is what's happening to you when you have a low attention span in literally everything that you do. This 8-second figure, that is your attention span. That is your average time that you're able to focus on a task. So essentially, after 8 seconds, you're losing focus on the task, which is exactly what you're doing here. So every time you're working, every time you're in a conversation, every time you're focusing on driving, anytime you're focusing on anything, which is basically all of your life, you are losing attention, and that is what means that you have a low attention span. Like, does that make sense? Like, your attention span is low, therefore you keep losing focus on what you're doing, right? And here, we're also losing focus on what we're doing. We're losing focus on the breath. Now, step 3 happens a bit later. Step 3 is when you realize that you've lost your focus, okay? You realize, oh shoot, I was not focusing on the breath. I was thinking about something else, right? So step 3 is you realize that you've lost your focus, and then you just go to step 4, which is basically just bring your focus back to the breath, okay? So meditation is kind of like a cycle like that, right? So throughout like a 5-minute meditation, you might go through 2 of these cycles. You might go through 10 of these cycles. You might go through 50 of these cycles, right? It really just depends. But meditation essentially is training you in the process of, I'm focused on something. Every time I lose focus, I'm going to bring it back, right? So meditation is like the anti-scrolling. If scrolling is the worst thing you can do for your attention span, meditation is the best thing because it's literally doing the exact opposite of what scrolling is. Scrolling is conditioning your brain. Every time I'm focused on something, I'm going to switch my focus because I'm going to scroll past. So it's conditioning your brain. Every time I'm focused on something, learn to switch your focus immediately. Have a low attention span. Don't focus on one thing at a time. Keep switching your attention. Meditation does the exact opposite. Meditation says each time you switch your attention, each time you lose focus, bring it back to what you were focused on. Okay? So meditation is the most impactful exercise, or the most potent exercise in terms of improving your attention span. Now, in terms of actually implementing meditation, there's multiple ways. Like some people do really long, like 30-minute sessions. Some people do 5-minute sessions. Some people do multiple throughout the day. So like this guy might do 1 session throughout the day. This guy might do 3. So I would say you want to start with a level of meditation to where it feels achievable, right? If I ask you to go on a really restrictive diet, right? Like a diet that you've never tried before, and I ask you to adhere to it for 1 day, you would be able to adhere to it pretty well because you're thinking, right, it's only 1 day, so I may as well give it my best. If I ask for you to adhere to it for a year, do you really think you're going to do that well? You're going to keep cheating. You're going to keep cheating on your diet over and over and over because you're thinking, this is such a long time horizon. I have a whole year. Right? With meditation and with attention span training in general, have sort of the mindset of a beginner because you are a beginner, right? You don't have a perfect attention span. If you did, you wouldn't be watching this video. You are a beginner and you do not have a perfect attention span. However, understand that you can improve it, right? So going in and doing like 5 30-minute sessions a day, what's that? That's a lot. 5 30-minute sessions a day. So if you're going through all that, that's like 2.5 hours. If you're going through all of that constantly every single day and thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be great. I'm going to do meditation 30 minutes a day. Like, that's obviously an extreme example, but when you're in each meditation session, you are not going to be focused because you're thinking, I have 4 other meditation sessions to do today. I have 30 minutes of meditation to go through. When you're beginning meditation and attention span training, think of yourself as a beginner. Literally start off with 2 minutes. See if you can do 2 minutes because you are a beginner, right? Don't be like the guy who like walks into the gym on his first day and is like, oh yeah, I can bench 100 pounds. Like I can bench 200 pounds. No, you can't. You've never been in here before. No matter how much you believe it, you're never going to be able to because you haven't done it before, right? Don't be like that guy. Understand, have some humility, be accepting of the fact that yes, I suck at this, right? I have an awful attention span, so I'm going to start slow. Okay? So start with 2 minutes, then you can go up to like 5, 10. I would say really at 15 or maybe 20 minutes is where it caps out. I found that for myself, beyond that point, the effectiveness of the meditation decreases. And this kind of also goes with like the gym like ideology. If you do like one set in the gym, which is like, you're pushing the weight, you're pushing, let's say you're on bench press, you're pushing, you reach failure where you can't push any harder, and then you rack the weight and you're done. Okay? That's 1 set. 3 sets is like you're basically doing that 3 times. So in gym culture, doing just 1 set of an exercise is very, very uncommon because people understand that in order to get the best results, you need to do a set multiple times, right? So like 3 sets per exercise, something like that. And I think it's the exact same thing with meditation. I think if you do 1 set in the gym and you do max effort, like I'm talking you're benching your heaviest weight for as much as you can. Then you take off some weight, keep going, take off some weight, keep going, literally doing the empty bar. Then you fail on the empty bar. Then you have your friend assist you with the empty bar and you're still going. Like a 10-minute set, that is going to be so much worse for your gains than just doing 3 normal sets. And I think it's the exact same way with meditation. Doing 1 set of 30 minutes versus doing 6 sets of 5 minutes, I think this is going to be a much more effective strategy. Why? Because number 1, you're actually motivated to go throughout the meditation session. You might think like, oh no, like I'm motivated anyways, but it's not so much about the conscious motivation. You might think, oh, like 30 minutes, I can handle that. Like, come on, I got this. It's not so much the conscious motivation. It's sort of the subconscious, because with meditation, it really is a lot to do with your subconscious. With the 30 minutes, it's almost like you're just going to turn your brain off, right? That was something I struggled with a lot with meditation, is I would meditate, I would lose focus, and my brain would just shut off and just sort of go into this automatic like mind-wandering mode. And that's just how my brain was, because I had damaged it so much with my scrolling and other attention span ruining activities. So you're going to sort of shut off your brain and just be like, oh, like just sitting there, right? If you do 5 minutes, first of all, you're going to go into it thinking, I've only got 5 minutes. I'm going to give this the best I can. And also, even if you do zone out, you just zone out, you lose focus entirely, the alarm's going to ring after 5 minutes. And then you realize, oh shoot, I lost my focus. And it's not so much damage. If you lose your focus after 2 minutes in the 30-minute session, you have 28 minutes of unfocused time if you never bring it back. If you lose your focus in the 5-minute session after 2 minutes, then you have only 3 minutes of unfocused time. And then you get to bring your attention back to the breath as soon as the timer rings. And then, you have these sets again later on in the day. Now, this is obviously an extreme example. I'm not saying that you would never bring your focus back, but I find that with a lot of beginners, they tend to really struggle with this. 6 times 5, right? Like, so multiple sets. I'm not saying you have to do 30 minutes of meditation a day, right? Like something like 3 sets of 5 or like 2 sets of 10. That seems perfect, right? So, number 1, you have a better intention. Number 2, you're also getting more practice throughout the day, right? Instead of like, oh, I'm just going to go through this one thing in the morning and then I would have no attention span training later in the day. You almost have this kind of reminder multiple times a day, right? Imagine we go to the extremes, right? So 30-minute session once a day versus like 1-minute session 30 times a day. Now, if you do a 30-minute session once a day, let's say you wake up in the morning and you do it, the rest of the day, you have no meditation whatsoever. And so you have none of this commitment to mindfulness, right? You might just go that afternoon or that evening and just start scrolling because you have no commitment to mindfulness. But if you're doing 1 minute 30 times, then you're constantly signaling to yourself, wait, I need to meditate. I need to get my attention span back. I need to do this. I need to do this. So the moment you try to start scrolling, boom, it's time to meditate again. Then, you're in this nice state. You get some work done. Boom, it's time to meditate again, right? This is extreme. I would say go for something like this. But yeah, I would say in terms of scaling up, I would not increase the session length because really, if you think about it, it's not so much the length of the session that makes it harder, but it's more about the cycle itself, right? Doing a 30-minute meditation session is not necessarily harder. It's not necessarily better, right? What matters is the overall amount of volume that you do and this process. So you'll find that when you meditate consistently and effectively, that this time gets longer. So this time goes up, this time goes down, and this time also goes down. So what do I mean? I mean that in the time that you're focused, before you lose your attention, that time is longer. Essentially, you're able to stay focused on the breath longer before you lose your attention and then have to bring it back. When you lose your attention, the gap between losing your attention and realizing you lost your attention is lower. Essentially, you are able to pick up on the fact that you lost your attention much quicker. And then, of course, bringing your focus back onto the breath is pretty much instant, but that will be quicker, right? So essentially, doing a longer meditation session, I think, is quite counterintuitive. It doesn't really provide any real benefit because no matter what, you're not going to be doing like a 30-minute cycle where you're focused for 30 minutes and then you lose your focus on the 29th minute and then you bring it back, right? That's not how it's going to be. You're going to go through multiple of these cycles over and over and over, and they're going to be relatively short cycles. So whether you split that up in the 30-minute session or like a couple of 10-minute sessions, the 10-minute sessions are clearly better. Even though with the 30-minute session you're meditating longer, you're actually not getting any proper benefits out of it. Whereas with the 10-minute sessions, you have greater intention, you have greater mindfulness throughout the day, and overall, you're just able to subconsciously remind yourself better because the session ends earlier. So that was how I would scale it. I would do multiple sets of shorter meditation time, especially because we're beginners, right? Building up to 10 minutes of solid good meditation takes a while, right? That's really hard. So don't have this big ego of like, yeah, I'm going to do 30 minutes. Like, no, you're not, right? Do this, you're going to see much better results. Okay, that is meditation. Now let's talk about content because short form content is what's destroying your attention span. But I understand with addiction, it's not so easy to just say, oh, this is bad for me. Let me just stop. It's not that easy, right? Every time you try to stop, you're tempted to go back. So here's exactly how I would get off of short form content. So number one, and this is, by the way, the same way that I try to think about really any addiction or temptation in general. I just find that this sort of way of thinking about it works better for me. And that is essentially to have no limits, but to do a better version of it, right? So like, let's say you're trying to improve your diet. Maybe you start off by cutting out sugar, and then you cut out processed foods, and then you go on like a super restrictive diet. I feel like cutting out sugar while simultaneously trying to restrict calories, restrict carbs, eating window, intermittent fasting, like all of that, it's just overwhelming, right? And you can think now, yeah, I know I'm motivated, I can do it. The truth is motivation is fleeting, right? You're not going to have that motivation when you're sitting there with your phone in front of you waiting to scroll, right? That moment, your motivation is gone. So you need to prepare yourself for that. So what I prefer is this sort of approach of do as much as you want. As much as you want. I'm not kidding. You can spend your entire day doing this, but do a better version of this, right? I'm saying cut out sugar, eat as much food as you want, but don't eat sugar. And this isn't permanent, by the way, because that would be very bad, but basically we're taking smaller steps here, okay? So first thing is going from short form content to long form content, okay? Now, I would say short form content is obviously like scrolling. I would say you can start by going like cut out anything under like 5 minutes. If it's under 5 minutes, just find another video. But then later on, you can say, no, I'm not going to watch anything under 10 minutes and then under 20 minutes, right? So you can scale this up, but basically the first step is going from short form to long form content. So cut out all short form content, okay, and only watch long form content. I'm not asking you to restrict screen time yet. I'm just saying only watch long form content. And eventually try to get to this progression where you're watching longer form videos, right? You're eventually watching 1 hour podcast episodes. Instead of like watching, there's the scientist Andrew Huberman, right? He's really popular on social media. Instead of watching like an Instagram reel of Andrew Huberman, go and watch the full 1.5 hour episode, right? Like essentially what you're doing is you're telling your brain, I am able to focus on this content and be interested in it, have my focus, my attention on it for longer periods of time. And then eventually just go to no content. Now, this can be somewhat forced, but it also doesn't have to be. Like, I have found that I went from short form content to long form content. And after I quit short form content, it took me about 2 years or so to where I lost my desire for long form content as well for entertainment purposes. And I just didn't feel like watching anything. Like I had no desire for it. And then so I just said no content, right? But for you, you might need to discipline yourself a little bit and say, nope, I'm not going to watch any content. Here, what you do instead is you read or you set certain types of content restrictions. You say, okay, I'm only going to watch content from like this channel or something like that because I know they only make high quality, low dopamine videos, right? That is a really good restriction to have. So I don't think you have to go like off of YouTube completely, but I would say like limit the channels that you're watching and only watch videos in a sense, kind of like in the same way that you would go to the library for like a research question, right? You go to the library, you go pull out a specific book in mind to find a research question, right? You don't like go to the library and like browse around all the books and like read half of one and then it's like, oh, read another. Like that's fun for entertainment, but I'm saying if you want to have a question answered, you go there, you find the exact book, you find the answer. Boom. Treat YouTube like that. Treat it like a search engine, like a database of information, and don't watch videos for entertainment. Okay? So that is the content sort of timeline of how you're going to quit short form content and eventually reduce entertainment content altogether. All right. Next thing, do boring things that train your attention span. So with meditation, you're essentially doing that, right? You're doing something really boring. The most boring thing you could do is just sitting there and focusing on your breath. You're focusing on something because if you let your mind wander, that would be even less boring because you're actually, kind of interested by your thoughts, but you're just breathing. That's so boring, right? So boring things train your attention span because you're telling your brain, I'm okay focusing on boring things. I'm good at this, right? So essentially do other boring things that train your attention span. So this could be, reading, right? Reading is a really big one. Anything basically boring that you wouldn't normally do, you can use as a replacement for higher stimulation activities. So reading instead of watching content, instead of walking in your basement or outside wherever with headphones in, you go outside on a walk, without headphones, without even taking your phone, and you just do something boring, right? Sit and stare at a wall. Literally sit and stare at a wall for an hour. I promise you, it's way harder than you think. It's going to do wonders for your attention span, though. So yeah, just do boring things in general. Try to make it like a challenge almost. That's something I do a lot with like reducing stimulation, especially, is I try to make it sort of a challenge. I see it as kind of like my identity of like, today, can I be less stimulated than I was yesterday? Can I do more boring things? I set little challenges for myself. Like I dare myself, okay, you're going to wait 5 minutes and literally just sit here before you open up your computer and, do this fun thing, whatever, right? Or even just work. Like you're going to sit here, stare at the wall for 5 minutes before you work, before you read a book, anything like that, right? Setting small kinds of challenges and basically treating lowering your attention span as a game is a really fun way to do it. And in general, just try to implement more boring things in your life, right? Like listening to a full Andrew Huberman Lab podcast episode might be boring for some of you. But if you genuinely are interested in that topic, then do that thing because it is boring, right? Going out on a walk may be boring for some of you. Do that thing because it is boring. Reading a book, again, do it because it's boring, right? Do these things because they are boring, because that is going to help your attention span. Okay. The next one is to have a low stimulation lifestyle. This kind of goes with the reducing stimulation by doing boring things. It kind of goes in the same bucket as that, but basically you want to reduce stimulation overall in your life as much as possible. So I mean literally from the food you eat, right? Literally the food that you eat. If you feel like the food that you eat is stimulating you too much, then cut that out, right? If you're sitting in your car or something like that and you're waiting, maybe you're waiting at a traffic light or something, instead of like quickly checking your messages or doing something, just sit there and have low stimulation. If you're sitting in a waiting room, sit there with low stimulation, right? If you're in a conversation, don't randomly pull out, your phone and like start doing stuff. Just sit there and have a conversation, right? Have essentially a low stimulation lifestyle. Essentially, almost like an old person would, like an elderly person. If you talk to an elderly person, they're not like on their phone scrolling while talking to you, right? They're there. You can leave the room for like 10, 15 minutes. They're not going to like start like randomly going on their phone, checking stuff. They'll just sit patiently and wait with a smile on their face, right? We should aspire to be like them because their attention span is not nearly as damaged as ours is. So almost visualize like being an elderly person, right? Have this sort of identity of like, yeah, I'm patient. I'm calm. I can sit here without stimulation. And that sort of mindset, that sort of identity of like, I'm going to minimize stimulation as much as possible. And I'm going to be this one unique person in my generation where everyone else is buried in their phones. I can sit here happily with a smile on my face without stimulating myself. Take pride in your identity as, someone who's trying to reduce their attention span, right? See yourself as someone different. And through this mindset shift, you'll find these little things throughout your day that are slowly destroying your attention span that you can just cut out like that, right? You'll find a certain time of day you feel really obliged to scroll. Maybe it's like a 5-minute, passing period between classes. That's a great example. During passing period between classes, you find that, oh my gosh, I really need to scroll right now because you're really bored. That's the time that you embrace boredom. When everyone else is on their phone, you walk through the hallway, you sit in class, and you are there focused. You're not stimulating yourself, right? So in general, have a low stimulation lifestyle and that overall mindset of like, yes, I'm someone who reduces stimulation in my life. And finally is the single task protocol. So this is essentially a protocol that involves doing one task at a time. Now, we all know that multitasking is super bad for us, right? We know that it decreases our overall work capacity. We know that your attention span and your overall focus just gets way disrupted, and we know that multitasking is bad. Yeah, I guarantee you are multitasking in your life. I guarantee you are multitasking, just not in the way that you think. You're not, scrolling while typing stuff on your computer to work. You're not that kind of multitasking. You're not, doing your chemistry homework and your math homework at the same time. Not that kind of multitasking. More like the multitasking where you're eating a meal and scrolling on your phone at the same time. Or watching TV, right? Listening to music while having a conversation with a friend. Going on a walk while listening to a podcast. That kind of multitasking. So I want you to embrace single tasking. Single tasking meaning you do one task at a time, even if it's like a super boring task where it's like, oh no, literally everyone else does something else while doing this. I don't care. You're doing it without stimulation. Like, don't bring your phone to the bathroom. Don't bring your phone to mealtime. Don't bring your phone to the gym. Don't bring your phone on walks. Don't bring your phone in these times that you're focused on something, right? If you're literally just sitting there on your phone, fine, whatever, right? But like, let's say, maybe you're trying to get more steps in during the day and you're like, oh yeah, I'll go on a walk and I'll listen to a podcast at the same time. So it's like productive because I'm learning stuff and it's fun as well. No, I promise you, you are going to get so much more of a benefit from your life instead of like learning something new from the podcast. Then you would be much better off just leaving your phone aside and just going on the walk with nothing. You're just focused on the walk. Focus on the thing itself. So when you're eating, don't focus on like, oh, I'm watching a TV show while eating. No, focus on the food itself. Focus on the experience of eating, right? Be grateful for the food that's in front of you, right? There are people in this world that don't get to eat every day. There are people in this world who don't get to eat when they're hungry. Be grateful that you have food on a plate in front of you. Savor every bite. Savoring, right? Savor every moment. If you're on a walk, right? Look at the nature around you. Enjoy it. At first, this is going to feel really, really forced, right? You're going to be like sitting there eating and like, oh, I taste nothing special. I'm just really bored. Over time, though, you'll find that the boredom decreases and that, the saying like fake it till you make it? It almost becomes true. If you like really try to like fake being in awe at nature when you're on a walk, you're like looking up at the trees and you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Oh my God, that's so cool. Even if you feel nothing inside, you just keep telling yourself, oh my gosh, this tree is so beautiful. I love this. I love nature. Oh my gosh, this is all so beautiful. You're going to slowly start to convince your brain that, yeah, this is nice. And subconsciously, whether you realize it or not, you are going to actually start enjoying your walks more. You're going to enjoy seeing nature more because you're essentially conditioning your brain through telling it over and over, through forcing it that, yes, I am enjoying this, right? So I understand it will feel forced at first. Push through the discomfort and boredom and fake it till you make it, okay? That will help you with the single tasking protocol. Now, with single tasking, I would say try to set a goal because a lot of the times you can really get away easily with like making an excuse and saying, oh no, like just today because like, today's a special day or whatever, or like, oh no, I'm really tired today, I'll just do it tomorrow. If you have, again, going back to that diet example, if I give you a strict diet to follow for one day, no matter how tiring that day is, you're going to be so much more motivated to do it than if I tell you to do it for a year, right? For a year, then you make excuses. Oh yeah, I can cheat on my diet. It's okay, like here and there. But if I give you one day, you're going to be locked in for that one day. And it's the same thing here. With a clear time frame in mind, you can do so much better. I think a good time frame for this is like 21 to 30-ish days. I find that anything shorter than 21 days, you're not really able to build up the habit. I'm pretty sure there's like a saying out there, like it takes 21 days to form a habit. And anything longer than 30 days, and it just seems too far distant in the future. So I would say somewhere between 21 and 30 days, try to aim for that, to where have a single activity where you are not multitasking. So maybe you say, look, dinner, I am not using my phone, no matter what. No matter what comes, even if I get a text message, I'm not using my phone. Even if someone calls me, I am not using my phone. No exceptions. For the next 21 days, I am not touching my phone as long as I am eating dinner. Boom, done. Now you have motivation because there's a clear time frame attached. And what you'll find is that over these next couple weeks or days, you're going to start adapting, right? As I talked about that fake it till you make it, you're going to start finding more joy in your nature walks. You're going to start tasting the food better. You're going to stop feeling as bored. And you'll find that afterwards, you just don't really want to do the thing anyways, because you've almost gone through withdrawal from the addiction of like, oh, I need to scroll on my phone while I'm eating. You've almost gone through withdrawal. And once you go through withdrawal, you don't really crave it as much anymore. you realize, yeah, I can go without my phone at dinner time. And in fact, I prefer going without my phone at dinner time. You'll find that after this time frame of 21 to 30 days, you literally just decide to carry it on further, pretty much indefinitely. Of course, then with a little bit of moderation. Oh, today, maybe there's this one video I really need to watch or whatever. Then you make the exception, right? But overall, your mindset towards it will be changed because you'll start to essentially learn, yeah, I can handle dinner without my phone. And then after these 21 to 30 days, guess what? You do it again, but with a different task. Maybe instead of dinner, now you're doing lunch. Maybe you're doing a walk with no stimulation. Maybe you decide, I'm going to go to the gym without my phone. That's a really ambitious one, right? Because that's like 1.5 hours of your day. But trust me, like, the more you can reduce stimulation and the more you can single task, just focus on the workout. Just focus on pushing metal as heavy as you can, with as much power as you can, and don't listen to the words of the podcast or like the music that's playing in your headphones. Yeah, you might enjoy it less. You're going to feel a little bit weaker in the gym, whatever. But you're single tasking. You're improving your attention span and you're essentially healing your mental abilities. Okay, so that was the full guide. We talked over what attention span is. We talked about why it's important and why it's low nowadays. Avoid the things that are destroying your attention span in the first place, so like social media, notifications, those kinds of things. Meditation is the single greatest exercise for improving your attention span. Go from short form content to longer form content and gradually increase the length. This sort of like lower bar of like, I'm not going to watch anything lower than this length of video, to eventually going to no content, to where, maybe you're only reading or watching videos from certain channels or literally just using YouTube like a search engine. Do boring things that train your attention span. So literally go and sit, stare at a wall, read a book, do something that's boring and that's outside of your comfort zone, somewhat challenging, to constantly challenge your attention span to grow better and better and better. Have an overall low stimulation lifestyle and mindset. Try to visualize being that unique person in your generation who reduces stimulation in all areas, even in your diet, right? In every area of your life, just find little ways that you can tweak it to make it lower stimulation, because those small changes will compound because they're all throughout your life every single day, right? And then, of course, we talked about the single task protocol. Last thing, top link in the description is my full mental health book. It is available in paperback at the moment. And yeah, so this whole idea of attention span really fits in with presence, and presence is one of the 6 capacities that I discuss in my mental health book. So in the presence chapter, we go over attention span, but also mind wandering and presence in your social life, all the different aspects of presence, and that's just one of the 6 chapters. We go over so many more important mental health protocols and ideas literally in this depth, right? Like, imagine this, but multiple times over within the presence chapter itself, and then imagine 6 or 5 more chapters similar to that for all the different kinds of areas of mental health that you can improve on. So if you found this video helpful, if you feel like, wow, I really learned something, like I would love to improve my mental health more, then check that out, because I feel like you would really enjoy it. That's all, and I will see you in the next video.